You're listening to Dodge Movie Podcast. Your hosts are Christy and Mike Dodge, the founders of Dodge Media Productions. We produce films and podcasts, so this is a podcast about films. Join them as they share their passion for filmmaking.
The process of making a film can be difficult because when you're in the filmmaking process, you don't have a good idea of what it's like for the viewer. Part of the way that we in the filmmaking business solve this problem is by focus groups. We ask people to watch a film and then tell us what they think. That helps us understand how what we're doing comes across to the viewer. If you would like to participate in that process on one of our films in the future, please send an email to christy@dodgemediaproductions.com and let us know that you're willing to participate in a focus group. In fact, we may avail ourselves of your services in the very near future. Act now.
And you don't have to have any previous film knowledge because we actually want to know if the film is hitting the beats for the average audience. So no previous experience required.
Just passion.
Hello, podcast listeners. Today we're going to talk about a movie called Masters of the Universe. But first, we have a special guest today. My regular co-host is on location, so I've invited another person to sit in. How are you doing today, Mike? Well, Mike, I'm doing pretty well, thank you. Would you tell the audience some of your background, maybe? Well, coincidentally, my background is a lot like your very own. Wow, I bet we'll probably agree on some things then. Okay, Masters of the Universe is directed by Travis Knight, famous for being the son of Phil Knight of Nike and for the movie Bumblebee, which is in the Transformers franchise. Now, this is another movie which is about a famous property from the 80s for us kids, He-Man. It was interesting that they didn't put that in the title, and that's actually kind of explained later on throughout the film. This is a fun film. I was really surprised. The first trailer I saw, I wasn't sure if it was going to be any good or not. I thought immediately of John Carter of Mars. The second trailer I saw, I thought, wow, there is some potential here. I want to go see this. And boy, I was glad that I made the time to do so. This is a fun film, and I mean that in the best possible way. One of the things that I think we lost in action films from the 80s is a sense of fun, of playfulness. I feel like often they take themselves far too seriously. I saw a trailer before this film for a film with Jason Statham. He seems like he's a nice fellow, but the film is all about a lot of brooding and frowning, and of course, lots and lots of violence. This film is more like the classic 80s cartoons. There are fights, but they aren't violent or gory. It seems more like the muscle-bound guy. And I really did like that there was some dialogue in there where he comments on why is he wandering around in a loincloth and some weird S&M chest gear. It was a bizarre choice, but they stuck with it. And I think that is indicative of Travis Knight and the filmmakers being fans of the original property that they were making into this film. I'd heard this film had been knocking around Hollywood for 20 or 25 years, and that makes sense. It was a beloved part of our childhood. I wouldn't say it was fantastic literature, but for kids of that age, the muscle-bound guy with a sword and sidekicks and a talking tiger, that's right up our alley. So I'm not surprised they wanted to use that IP and get some additional new leverage out of that. However, this was the best thing that I think it could have been, given the material. Credit again to not just Travis Knight, but also the screenwriters, the brothers Nee and another fellow, for coming up with a screenplay that captures the wonder that we felt, along with an adult sensibility and a bit of a wink. There are some jokes in there that I found delightfully edgy, especially for a film that is about what was a children's property at the time. Well done. And they take a shot at some of the dumb names for the characters as well. Again, all with a sense of being aware of themselves. Not in a way where they're mocking, but in the kind of thing where when you look back on your childhood, you fondly remember some of the cheesy things that you thought were super cool at the time. And He-Man would be one of those. The special effects in the film I thought were pretty well done. They apparently did some visual effects for some of the things, but most of it was practical special effects to make the different things work. That was especially noteworthy for Skeletor's physique, which apparently was a bodysuit, not visual effects. So credit to the costumers and hair and makeup, whoever was involved in all of that, because it worked really well. Now for costuming, I do have to make one small note. When talking about Night at the Museum Battle of the Smithsonian, Thomas Lennon and Robert Ben-Garant mentioned that one of the things that helped their box office was Amy Adams in tight trousers as Amelia Earhart. Well, we of course saw in Star Wars Episode II Attack of the Clones, Natalie Portman ran around in tight trousers for quite a bit of the film. Obviously, these filmmakers took a page out of that book because Camila Mendes wanders around in tight trousers for a lot of the film. Now, she looks nice in them. I didn't have a problem with it aesthetically, but really tight white pants seems to be an odd choice for somebody who's got a job which is combat oriented. There's a part where she slides down a dirt hill or something, and I was thinking, those pants are irretrievably ruined with the dirt. You'll never get them clean. Although perhaps the costume department knows somebody who works for the English rugby side whose uniform is all white in the sport where you roll around in the mud. So I guess maybe there is a product placement I missed for one of the detergent companies. Speaking of product placement though, did you notice the one in the gym, Mike? Well, actually I did. It was fun to see that Skeletor had on a sweatshirt with the Nike swoosh. A little credit to Dad's company. Yeah, you're right, Mike. That is definitely true. I thought it was an interesting cast of Idris Elba as the Master at Arms, not because of anything about him as a person, but just he's a fairly big name for that part. I don't know, you maybe could argue that some of the others were bigger names, but it seems like this is a little bit out of his oeuvre. So credit to him for taking the role and really bringing a good performance. Speaking of casting, what did you think about the actor they cast as Adam? Well, I only know him from The Sheep Detectives, which I saw recently in theaters, and I thought he originally looked to be a little bit small for the role. That's true, actually. One of the previous incarnations of this film maybe getting made, they wanted to have a bodybuilder in that role. Yeah, that makes sense because when we were kids, He-Man was pretty muscle-bound. He was kind of unrealistically so. Yeah, weren't our action figures unrealistic back then? Boy, that was crazy. But this fella, he seems to have a decent physique, not quite as big as the toy we were used to, but still pretty buff. You know, one thing I noticed, he was supposed to be a nerd a la Steve Rogers as Captain America, but he had a scar on his left shoulder like he had maybe had rotator cuff or labrum surgery. Yeah, that part wasn't exactly nerdy, but I thought they did a good job of hiding him in dress shirts and polos and things until he took his clothes off to be He-Man. Yeah, I think so too. Speaking of that though, they did cast the Mountain from Game of Thrones in a character role for this. And I have to say, when I saw it, I didn't recognize his face due to the fantastic makeup, but that physique, you immediately think, oh, that's Hathor right there. That was a good cast. I thought Alison Brie did a fantastic job as Evil Lynn, and the other characters were pretty good. Did you recognize Jared Leto as Skeletor? No, I didn't. I didn't catch the voice, and of course with the bodysuit and the CGI, there's no way to recognize the physique, but I thought he did a pretty darn good job too. Yeah, he kind of took it over the top in a humorous, melodramatic way. I thought that worked out pretty well. What did you think about the various action and fight scenes? Well, Mike, now that you mention it, they were kind of fun, again, in an 80s kind of way. There's a kind of car chase and then running fight through cars, which is very reminiscent of these action films. And then there's a flying sequence, and they have, of course, some physical hand-to-hand combat. I think it all worked out pretty well. I'm not the biggest action fan, neither am I. But I feel like the fight sequences were good in a way that I enjoyed them. I felt like the plot was pretty good for a film like this. Yeah, you're right. I didn't see the end coming, but I thought it was well done. I especially liked the little bit with Evelyn, no spoilers for superfan Chris, right at the end of that fight. What do you think is a highlight of this film, Mike? Well, again, as I mentioned before, I think it's the sense of fun, the sense of play. This is a lightweight summer film. I don't know that you're going to get any Oscar noms or that people will be studying this in film theory classes, but it's great entertainment. In the studio, Seth Rogen's character talks about the difference between films and movies, and I guess this would be more of a movie. It's just entertaining. There's no treatise on how parents should treat their children or what we should do in the world. It's just a fun story about a guy in a Speedo with a sword. All right, cool. What do you think was the area that needed to be improved on? Well, the only nitpick I have is it might have been a tiny bit long for an action film. As we famously say, 86 minutes, including credits, got a little bit past that, but I think it held up pretty well. Didn't feel like it dragged. It was doing well. Any final thoughts on this one, Mike? I think this is an excellent way to spend some time in a cool, shady theater on a hot summer day. I thought this was fun. If you don't catch it in the cinema and you do see it on streaming, I think it's really a fun watch. You could certainly put it on and not be unhappy about what you watched. All right, well, Mike, thanks for joining us today. Oh, my pleasure, Mike. You're a pretty good guy. Well, thanks. I've enjoyed you as well. And don't forget, Dodges never stop, and neither do the movies.
Some of our longtime listeners may have already gotten a sticker or two from our podcast, but if you would like the complete sticker pack so you can compare with your friends or maybe make your neighbors jealous, please send an email to Christy@DodgeMediaProductions.com requesting a sticker pack. Geography does not matter. We will ship internationally.
Yes, and we understand that we have some fans in Korea. Thank you. In Germany, thank you. Australia, we have a couple fans. So we would love to know where you're listening from. We have a new sticker that we are very excited about, designed by our very own Michael W. Dodge, and we would love to send it out to you. So just shoot me an email with your address. And this is not for email collection, although if you would like to be on our newsletter, state that, and I can get you on our newsletter list. But we are not mining for emails. We simply want to show our appreciation for your listenership and happy to send you out a sticker pack. Just ask.
Bonus points for people who post photos on social media of them rocking their DMP stickers.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Thanks for listening to Dodge Movie Podcast with Christy and Mike Dodge of Dodge Media Productions. To find out more about this podcast and what we do, go to DodgeMediaProductions.com. Subscribe, share, leave a comment, and tell us what we should watch next. Dodges never stop, and neither do the movies.